Europeans have always eaten people, and they never wiped their mouths. This isn't a metaphor. Not cultural cannibalism. Not, oh, capitalism chews up labor. No, they literally devoured people. Bit by bit. Bone by bone. Organs braised. Blood fermented. Genitals dried like citrus peel. In a spice rack of colonial science. This isn't a fringe tale. It's the spine of their entire civilization. Europe is a charcuterie board of the colonized, and it has been eating other people's bodies, black, brown, indigenous, and alive, for over 700 years. From slave ship to dissection table, Europe treated the black body like a side of beef, cut, rendered, labeled, and sold. In Senegal, French doctors boiled black corpses to extract medicinal oil, literally bottling up human fat like it was argan serum for the Enlightenment skincare routine. Karl Peters, Germany's sadistic colonial governor, murdered Africans and mailed their body parts home like souvenirs from a flesh safari. Enslaved black women like Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy were cut open, stitched without anesthesia, and had their uteruses extracted by J. Marion Sims, who kept their tissue in jars for research. You ever been sliced into while awake, naked and screaming, just so a white man can get his name on a hospital wing? That's not science. That's dinner prep. Their breasts were groped, their vaginas harvested, their milk stolen, their wombs auctioned. That is cannibalism. Europeans landed in the Americas, starving and stupid, and decided to eat the hosts. Spanish conquistadors fed babies to dogs alive, called it feeding pork. Las Casas said they tossed them into the mouths of dogs while they were still crying out for their mothers. In California, white settlers during the gold rush roasted indigenous children over open fires and bragged about the flavor. In Brazil, the Portuguese captured Tupinamba bodies and sent them back pickled in barrels, labeled as botanical samples. And then came the skull harvest. Indigenous people were beheaded, boiled, and their skulls cracked open for cranial science. Some were eaten, others were smoked, painted, or turned into pen holders in French salons. They didn't just kill indigenous people. They smoked them like jerky. They painted them with their ashes. They wrote treaties with ink made from their blood. And then they called you the savage. In India, during the Bengal famine, which Britain caused, millions starved. So British doctors collected the corpses, sliced out the livers, and tested nutritional theories by boiling Indian tissues and feeding it to prisoners. In Vietnam, the French used live Vietnamese bodies as meat labs, injecting them with cadaver juices, testing digestive breakdown of human organs, and collecting fecal data after feeding them rendered tissue. Imagine someone dying of hunger and the colonizer standing over them, whispering, "Great, now we can see how your spleen breaks down under duress." That's not medicine. That's fine dining for the empire. Truganini, the last full-blooded Palawa woman of Tasmania, was promised peace in death. Instead, she was dug up, skinned, and her bones put on display for 80 years. Maori heads were smoked like ham, skinned, and sold to Europeans, who kept them as trophy ashtrays. Some were even reboiled to preserve cranial scent. Missionaries came to baptize, scientists came to butcher, and museum curators came to arrange your grandmother's skull next to a tea set. Palestinian corpses were harvested for corneas, bones, and heart valves. many of which were flown to European labs and research hospitals for transplant science. This was still happening in 2009. Stolen Congolese blood was used to test European hemoglobin standards. Kidneys, wombs, skulls, penises, and breast tissue from colonized people were mailed, cataloged, frozen, dissected, traded. Colonial medicine was a potluck, and the main course was anyone who couldn't speak French. The British Museum still has over 18,000 human remains, many of them from people they raped, killed, or starved. Some were used in 19th century tasting experiments. Yes, actual taste. They licked, sniffed, and consumed preserved human samples to measure racial flavor profiles. The museum wasn't built after the feast. It is the feast. Peter Thiel, billionaire vampire, invests in young people's blood transfusions to stay youthful. The fertility industry harvests brown women's eggs, rents black and Asian wombs, and calls it global surrogacy. Plasma clinics extract blood from the poor and sell it to white hospitals at a 400% markup. One Spanish study called it, "The most nutritious plasma comes from Africans." And you thought cannibalism was extinct. No, no, no. They just put it in a lab coat and called it innovation. Europeans have always eaten people. They ate African uteruses, indigenous babies, Asian spleens, Pacific skulls, Palestinian heart valves, Latin American liver samples, Global South plasma, black girl ovaries. They bottled your blood. They froze your marrow. They sterilized your mothers. They dissected your ancestors. They auctioned your skin. And then they called you uncivilized. So let me say it louder. Europeans have always eaten people. They ate you. They ate your gods. They ate your children. And they're still licking their fingers. Cope.